Hello, welcome to Government. This is Unit 4, Part 2. We're looking at Congress. Today we're going to talk about how it is organized. All right. So each Congress holds two sessions, and by what we mean by each Congress is the time between elections, right? And one session each year. House leadership, it is more organized and more strict than the Senate, right? And it is led by the Speaker, right? The Speaker of the House. There's a picture of Newt Gingrich, who was Speaker back in the 1990s, one of the most outspoken and well known speakers of the last 50 to 100 years. After the Speaker comes the majority and minority leaders in charge of their respective parties in the House, and they are elected by the party caucus or conference. Then you have the whips. These are also elected by party members. It is their job to keep party discipline and to persuade party members to vote with the party. Senate leadership, like I said, not as rigid. All right, it is not as strict. At one point, it was run by unwritten rules of conduct. They have since been written down. Right. The presiding officer is the vice president, or supposed to be. Normally, the vice president isn't there. They only show up whenever there is a possibility of a tie vote, and they get because the only time they vote is to break a tie. The president pro tempore is elected by the majority party. In other words, that's the person that kind of basically runs the show when the VP is absent, which is almost every day. They are not really the leader of the Senate. They just run it in his absence. Okay? The majority leader, who is elected by the majority party, really becomes the leader of the Senate because they're leading the majority party, so they have the majority votes. So the majority leader is the true leader of the Senate. All right. There are also minority leader and whips elected, but they are not as powerful as their House counterparts, really. And it is the majority leader that is most important in the Senate. They use a committee system. The committee system allows for specialization. Right? Committees focus on one area. Right? And then there are four types of committees. The most common is the standing committee. They continue from one Congress to the next. That's why they're called standing. They're always standing. All right. And that's where bills are considered first. So any bill that goes through Congress ends up in a standing committee of some sort. Okay. There are joint committees. They have members from both houses, and then they do special investigations or special studies. Okay. And then a conference committee is a type of joint committee. You have members from both houses, but they are called together when a bill passes through both houses, but they have different wording. This conference is called, and members from the original committees meet to discuss the wording and try to get the bill so that it has the same wording. And then it has to go back actually for another vote in each house before it is passed. Right. The last one is the Select Committee. They're a very temporary committee, and they have a very specific purpose. And once they're done, they're over with. The House Committee on Rules. This is a very important one. There is no counterpart in the Senate. Right. It reviews bills coming out of other committees. It sets the date for consideration, how much time there will be for that debate. It can also add the closed rule, which means there can be no amendments added to a bill. The House Committee on Rules is the most important committee in Congress because every bill that will be passed has to go through it. Committee chairs are elected in the House by the majority party. In the Senate, it is the committee member with the longest tenure of the majority party. So the oldest member of the longest serving member of the majority party becomes the chairman. Right? There's a 6-year maximum to chair committees. So once you have chaired it for 6 years, then you step down and somebody else does it. Committee membership. New congressman, you get elected, you request committees. You're requesting them that will help you hopefully get reelected, or that you have an expertise / interest in. So you are an expert at this. If you were a teacher and become a congressman, then you might want to be on the education committee. Committee membership itself is based on majority versus minority party makeup. Of course, the majority party is going to have more members because they're the majority. Okay. However, that is even more so when you're talking about important committees. They are disproportionately in favor of the majority party. So in other words, it's a much larger. So it might be like 51% to 49% as far as the House makeup is concerned. But the Rules Committee is 75% majority party and 25% minority party.